I'm M4, thrilled to share my original short story. Enhanced by AI-generated audio and visuals, these aids are to highlight my tale. Enjoy.
The first time I saw her, she was wandering through the abandoned Blackwood Manor, scowling at the dusty furniture. To anyone else, she would have appeared completely normal. A sullen teenager with pale skin, dark clothes, and a permanent chip on her shoulder. But my magic sight revealed the truth. A pulsing violet energy emanating from her core, rhythmic and powerful like a second heartbeat. Not human. Definitely not human.
You're trespassing.
She called out, spotting me in the doorway.
This place is condemned.
So are you, technically, I replied, stepping inside. Though I don't think you know that yet. Her eyes narrowed.
What's that supposed to mean, creep?
I raised my hands in a non-threatening gesture. My name's Elias. I'm a magical investigator and you're radiating a very unique magical signature.
Magic? Are you insane?
She rolled her eyes, but I noticed a flicker of uncertainty.
Get out before I call the cops.
With what phone? I gestured around the decrepit mansion. Look, I don't know your situation, but I can see the magic in you. Right there. I pointed to her chest. A powerful gemstone from the energy signature, embedded in in you. Her face paled even further.
You're crazy.
But her hand drifted to her sternum, pressing against it.
There's nothing.
I moved too quickly for her to react, tapping into my power to cross the room in a blur. Sorry about this, I said, and flicked a small containment ward around us both. That's when she attacked. Not with the panicked flailing of a scared teenager, but with surprising strength and ferocity. Her fist connected with my jaw, sending me stumbling backward. I don't know what you're playing at, she growled, but you picked the wrong girl to mess with. She was strong, unnaturally so. We exchanged blows, the magical ward containing our fight within a shimmering blue bubble. I was holding back, trying not to hurt her, until a particularly vicious kick forced me to counter with more force than I intended. My palms struck her chest. There was a sound like breaking porcelain, and a thin crack appeared across her skin, revealing a pulsing violet light beneath. She froze, looking down at the fracture.
What?
Her fingers touched the crack, feeling the hard, smooth surface that should have been flesh.
What am I?
I relaxed my stance. I think you're being sustained by that gemstone I mentioned. The magic is constructing your physical form. She stared at her hands in horror.
But I'm real. I have memories. I grew up in Millfield. My name is Violet Mercer. I'm 17.
And when was the last time you ate something? Or slept? Or felt cold or hot? I asked gently. The realization dawned on her face.
I can't remember.
I lowered the ward. I don't have all the answers, but I'd like to help you find them. This manor has been abandoned for 80 years, according to records. Have you been here all that time?
That's impossible.
She whispered.
I was just...
She trailed off, her certainty crumbling.
I don't know how I got here.
Let me help you, I offered. My specialty is magical anomalies, and you're definitely the most interesting one I've encountered. Violet looked down at the crack in her chest, at the light pulsing beneath. After a long moment, she nodded. The manor's basement was a labyrinth of collapsed beams and ancient storage. Violet led the way with surprising confidence.
It feels like I know this place.
She said, trailing her fingers along the wall.
But I don't have specific memories of it.
The stone might be connecting you to the location, I suggested. Some magical artifacts create spatial bonds. She glanced back at me.
If what you're saying is true, that I'm not real, then what am I?
I don't have that answer yet, I said honestly. But real is subjective. You think, you feel, you have agency. That's pretty real to me. We reached a section of wall that looked different from the rest. Newer bricks, irregular spacing.
This wall feels wrong,
Violet said, pressing her hand against it.
like it doesn't belong.
I examined it with my mage sight. It's warded, old magic, but still potent. I glanced at her. Stand back. Channeling power through my fingertips, I traced counter sigils across the surface. The bricks glowed red, then crumbled to dust. Behind the wall was a small chamber containing a single wooden chest.
What is it?
Violet peered over my shoulder. Let's find out. I carefully opened the chest. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, lay a human skeleton. It was small, a teenager's frame, with a curious hole carved into the sternum. Next to it was a leather-bound journal. Violet stared at the skeleton, confusion evident on her face.
Who is that?
I picked up the journal and began flipping through it. Herbert Blackwood, 1943. Experiments in creating constructs from human spirits. I read silently for a moment. Oh, hell.
What?
Violet demanded. I looked up at her, then down at the skeleton. Violet, I think this is you. She laughed nervously.
What? No, that's ridiculous. I'm right here.
This journal describes a ritual using an Alexandrite gemstone to capture a dying person's spirit and create a physical construct, a perfect replica of their living body. I held up the book. The subject was a 17-year-old girl named Violet Mercer, who died in 1943. She backed away.
No, that's not possible. I'm alive. I'm a person.
But as she stared at the skeleton, something changed in her expression. The crack in her chest widened slightly, the violet light pulsing more frantically.
I would have noticed if I wasn't real.
She whispered.
I would know if I was some kind of ghost.
As the word ghost left her lips, the crack in her chest expanded dramatically. Violet gasped, clutching at it as more fractures spiderwebbed across her skin.
What's happening to me?
She cried. The realization is destabilizing your construct, I said urgently. Your consciousness is rejecting the artificial form now that you know the truth. The violet light blazed through the widening cracks. Pieces of her skin, not skin at all, but some kind of magical construct, began to flake away like pottery shards.
Help me.
She pleaded, her voice distorting as her form deteriorated.
I don't want to disappear.
I grabbed the journal, frantically scanning for clues. The stone, I muttered. It's the anchor. If I can just... Her chest was splitting open now, revealing the brilliant violet gemstone embedded where her heart should have been. As more of her constructed form crumbled away, the stone began to detach, floating slightly above the disintegrating body. I made a decision then that violated about 50 magical protocols. Dropping the journal, I lunged forward and seized the gemstone with both hands. It burned cold against my palms. Channeling my power directly into it, I spoke words of binding and permanence. Not the twisted, controlling magic that Herbert Blackwood had used, but something of my own creation. Something meant to stabilize, to anchor. By my will and your desire, I chanted, I bind this consciousness to form. Not enslaved, but empowered. Not trapped, but tethered. The stone flared blindingly. Power surged through me, draining my reserves faster than I'd anticipated. I staggered, but maintained the flow. When the light faded, Violet stood before me, whole again, the cracks sealed. The stone was no longer visible, but I could sense it within her, its energy steady and controlled. She looked down at her hands in wonder, then at me.
What did you do?
I sat heavily on the dirt floor, exhausted. I reinforced your connection to the stone, but revised the terms. Blackwood's magic was meant to create a puppet he could control. I liberated the connection. The stone is still your anchor, but you control it now, not the other way around. She touched her chest, where the stone lay hidden.
I feel different. Stronger.
You are stronger. I put a lot into bringing you back. My body full of lethargy and drained of most of my magic, I breathed heavily, trying to get some energy back. I turned and nodded toward the skeleton. What do you want to do about your remains? Violet considered the bones that had once been her body.
Bury her. I mean me.
Sighing, she continued,
We need to bury them properly. Somewhere nice. With flowers, maybe.
A faint smile touched her lips.
I like flowers. We can do that.
I struggled to my feet. And after?
After?
She looked uncertain. Well, you're not bound to this house anymore. You could go anywhere, do anything. I brushed dirt from my clothes. Or, if you want, you could come with me. I investigate magical anomalies, and you, Violet Mercer, are quite the anomaly. Could use your help with future cases. She raised an eyebrow.
Are you offering me a job?
More like a partnership. I shrugged. Plus, I can help you learn about your new nature, what you're capable of. Violet looked around the dark basement that had been her prison for 8 decades, then at the skeleton of the girl she once was.
Partners,
She agreed, extending her hand. I shook it, feeling the cool but definite pressure of her grip.
fair warning.
She added with a hint of her earlier sharpness.
I'm still going to be difficult sometimes.
I'm counting on it, I replied, and together we carried her bones up into the light.